on record. We're back on record at 8:01. Council, for those who might just be turning in, which exhibit numbers have you given him?
I gave him Exhibit 267, which is a copy of his testimony.
All right. And the other document that we identified and began to testify about yesterday was Exhibit 268, so I have them both in front of me.
Great, thank you. And this is Ashley Vullen with the Milk Innovation Group. So, Mr. Schilke, yesterday we learned a little bit about your background and the products that Crystal sells. What kinds of Class 1 products does Crystal sell?
We make milks and creams of...
Make sure that mic is closer to you.
Okay.
You might want to straighten it so that it's taller or something.
And if you scoot your chair, that can help a little bit too. There you go.
All right.
Good,
We're
thank
on
you.
it.
What kinds of Class 1 products does Crystal process?
Milks and creams.
Are they ESL or HTST, your milks?
We are an HTST plant.
Exclusively?
Yes.
And we heard yesterday also about some of the higher protein products that you sold. How does Crystal ensure the higher protein content of its products?
The milk does not come in that way. In California, we have a fortification standard, so we need to buy additional solids. We add them to our fluid milks in the form of condensed milk. Others use non-fat dried milk, and we pay for them and pool for them appropriately.
And do you think that the protein in milk has value or appeal to consumers?
I do.
But are you able to sell those products for a higher price because of their protein content?
No. We've never had a customer in Oregon or Arizona say, hey, you know that milk with 20% more protein, we want to pay you 20% more for it. I know Fairlife and others have found value doing that, but we haven't found that on a mass level anywhere.
And yesterday we had talked about some of your significant experience in risk management. Have you ever hedged any dairy product that a company you work for sells?
Yeah. Well, certainly I started in the Extension Service doing research from a USDA Risk Management Service grant. And with that, we really helped grow the futures market as dairy farmers first started buying Class 3 contracts. It was really a nothing at first. And the same thing could be said. So that would be my experience at the Extension Service. We did a lot of risk management education, and over time it grew. The same would be said for the larger manufacturers that I came to work with. First being Hilmar Cheese when I went there. They really didn't offer fixed price sales, things like that. And over time, they did. And over time, the CME said, hey, because this is growing, let's not just sell a Class 3 contract. Let's sell a cheese contract, a whey contract, a butter, a non-fat dry milk. It took time, but we grew.
You talked about your experience at the Extension Service. What year was that?
It would have started in 2003.
And that's when you think hedging in the cheese market was really in its infancy?
Yeah, it started before then, but when you look at the significant volumes, that's really around where I feel it started to pick up.
And then after that, have you ever done any butter hedging?
Certainly. Obviously, I worked for California Dairies and did their risk management. They make a little bit of butter, and I do that in my job today as well. We manufacture butter. We are also a large ice cream manufacturer, and we use butter futures to offer fixed price contracts to our customers.
And so historically, hedging has been a big part of how you manage risk for the companies that you work for?
Yes.
And it's grown over time?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done
I'm
any...
sorry. What was that answer?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have you ever done any hedging on a Class 1 product?
No, I have not.
Why not?
Well, up until a few years ago, it really wasn't possible. And at the moment, I don't have a lot of customers knocking down the door asking for it. That, we've trained them very well in this room to accept the price fluctuations. That said, I feel I have a lot of customers who buy HTST milk and would find a lot of value in it, namely school lunch programs, USDA feeding programs. These are programs where people are allocated a fixed budget amount for the entire year. And when the class one price starts going all over the place, they really struggle to supply that milk and meet their budget constraints. So if I could offer them a level set price for their entire budget year, I think they would find a lot of value in that.
And in order to do that, you're thinking you need, what would you need in order to do that? Or what kind of changes or education would need to happen for you to approach those customers with a fixed price offer?
The same as in when we started milk futures for dairy farms and we started cheese futures and butter futures. It just takes time to unlearn the roller coaster and do that.
But you think there would be a lot of value in at least certain sectors to be able to do that?
Food service, restaurants, government, there's a lot of people who are unable to pass the price along.
And how long in your experience in class one, or excuse me, and also in risk management, how long do you think class one, both processors, customers, would need to develop a more category-wide approach to stable prices and hedging?
In my experience in the other markets, it probably took 10 years before people were really dipping their toe in the water, then dipping it again and getting into it.
Thank you. So now if you have your PowerPoint available, for those with a printed copy, we're headed to page 6 of 11, the slide entitled Class 1 Utilization in California. Mr. Schulke, could you pull that up for us, please?
I'm doing that, and then I also thought maybe as a matter we should introduce the California pool report that I'm talking about into the record, if not, but it's there.
If you've checked it and that's where the source of your testimony came from, we can cover that in your exam.
Good enough. There's a picture on your screen of it. I didn't make these numbers up. What I did here.
Oh, just one moment.
Oh, no, it's not there. Anyways, this is the box at the top of the California pool report.
Sorry, just one moment, Mr. Schulke. Let's give.
Okay.
So if we can go to the next slide, there we go. So can you tell us about what class 1 utilization is in California, at least in July of 2023?
Yeah, so if you look at the pool report, it would have said 17% of the milk pooled went to class 1, 6% class 2, 73.3. Doing a rough estimation, which I'll get to later, the milk produced and sold in California probably was more like the numbers above, which was 10 in class 1, 3 in 2, 44 in 3, and 42 in 4.
And how did you?
For those of us who are looking at this, we understood that. For someone who's just reading the transcript, you can't leave out class 1, 10%. You have to say the whole thing. Okay. So go back through if you would.
Why don't we start at the top and you can read from the top down of the data you've presented here.
My best guess of how milk was really sold in California in the month of July 2023 was 10% went into the class 1 market, 2% went into the class 3 market.
Sorry, I think you inverted those. Go back to...
3% went into the class 2 market.
There you go.
44% went into the class 3 market, and 42% went into the class 4 market.
And how did you estimate these numbers?
I took the July pool report and then I plugged in 1.4 billion pounds of milk into class 4, which is an approximate value of what you'd normally expect to see there. And it also made the total at the bottom tie to the USDA estimate of milk production for the state.
Okay. And how did you know that there were about 1.4 billion pounds of class 4?
When it is pooled, that's the kind of number you see there.
Thank you. Now, that was just the milk within the order and the utilization of that milk. Now, can you tell us for that same month, July 2023, what the California pool utilization was?
Yes, so here what I'm going to walk through is I wanted to show the room what is depooling. So here is what got pooled in the order for that month. 17% of the milk was in class 1, 6% was in class 2, 73% was in class 3, and 4% was in class 4.
And given the amount of utilization in class 4, what is that compared to the amount in the total order? What does that tell you about what the prices were in July of 2023?
This tells you that the class 4 price was above the blend price.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so because the class 4 price was above the blend price, what was class 4 doing with their milk?
They were not pooling it.
Thank you. So let's go to the next slide if we can, please.
Okay, so, and on this slide, to walk it through,
And let's start just with the pounds and the prices in green, please.
yes. Do you want me to say the pounds or?
You have to pretend like people can't see this.
Okay. So those same percentages that I talked about before, you will find these pounds. These are the pounds that reported as pooled on the California Statistical Uniform Report.
And the green highlighted data, was this the actual price of those classes for July of 2023?
Yes, this is the price as taken from the top box of the pool report. In the real world, we have location differentials and things, but let's keep it simple and only look at the top of the report for now. We can add the other stuff later.
And I see at the bottom, the weighted average, that row has the total pounds and then a $15.24. Do you see that?
Yes.
What is that number, the $15.24?
So what I did here was I did a simple weighted average of the pounds reported per class and the price reported per class from the top of the pool report. This number here will vary slightly from the statistical uniform price in the city of LA, as you would see at the bottom of the report, but let's keep it simple.
Okay. And here, as you described earlier, because the class 4 price was higher than the uniform price, that class 4 milk was depooled or not pooled that month, correct?
You will actually see a large number of class 4 pounds in there, and that would be that building with the red dome you saw earlier in my presentation. That's me because I cannot depool. So what happened here was I paid $18.26 into the pool, but the dairy farmer who sold milk to me only got $15.24.
And that's for your class 4 products.
For my class 4 and my class 2 products.
Okay, and this $19.42 at the top, what price is that?
Those would be the price roughly paid in for my class 1 products.
And I understand then once we go to the right of the green numbers, you did estimation of what different class 1 prices and the impact they would have on pooling decisions. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so the main thing I want to point out here is if you look at the difference between the blend price and the class price, for instance, on the class 4 volume, that means the difference between the blend and the class 4 price is $3.02. So for every 100 of milk class 4 paid in, they sustained that loss essentially. So if you look at that number times the volume of milk I ran in my pool plant for class 4 and class 2, that's how much more money this month, this isn't all mine utilization, but a lot of it is. That's how much money I paid into the pool, and the difference would be how much less my farmers received. So what I wanted to point out is if you had milk to sell me and you wanted a really good deal, you could say, well, if it goes into my plant, some of it's going to go into class 1 and I'm going to pay $19.42. Some of it's going to go into class 2 and I'm going to pay $19.12. Some of it's going to go into class 4 and I'm going to pay $18.26. But if you want a really good deal on a spot load of milk, you know what you should do? Sell it to a class 4 plant at class 4 minus 2. Because if you sell that load of milk to me, I'm going to pay in all this money, but you're only going to get $15.24. If you depooled and sold it to a class 4 plant at class 4 minus 2, you would now get $18.26 or $16.26. That's a much better deal.
Thank you. And then I want to look at this experiment you ran with the class 1 price. So the example that you've given here shows that the actual numbers incentivized class 4 to depool in July of 2023, correct?
Yes.
And I see at the top row, you have raised the class 1 price by $5 intervals over time. And my understanding is that you're trying to see, as you raise the class 1 price, how high must it be in order to incentivize class 4 to stay in the pool? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So can you walk us through how you raised the class 1 price and how high it had to be in order to impact class 4 pooling decisions?
Yes, and the other way of looking at it would be, how high do I need to raise the class 1 price in order to pull milk out of a class 4 plant? So in California, we have a very low class 1 utilization. So if I raise the class 1 price by $5 to $25, multiply it by those pounds, and spread the money over the pool, I only raise the blend up to $16.20. I'm still $2 below class 4.
And you've raised the blend from what dollar amount to what dollar amount?
$15.24 to $16.20.
So $15.24. And after you added about $5 to what you were paying for the class 1 milk.
Yes.
So describe it that way, if you will.
Okay. And then if we go up, so now let's say I were to increase the class 1 price to $30. Does that raise the blend enough to attract milk? The answer is no. Now my blend price.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
My blend price only went up to $17.07. In order to.
Would that be $17.07?
$17.07.
Thanks.
In order to raise the blend price up to the class 4 level, I would need to raise the class 1 price to $37. And now I can pull milk out of a class 4 plant.
And what total amount would class 1 collectively have had to pay into the pool that month alone in order to reach the $37?
On the volume of 349 million pounds and on a price difference of $19.42 and $37, that's $61 million, or roughly $1.57 per gallon of milk was the necessary price increase to do that.
So in your opinion, is using the class 1 or raising the class 1 price alone an effective way to address depooling in an order with California's utilization?
No, in orders with very high manufacturing utilization, the Class 1 price does not move the blend very well.
Thank you. And anything else you want to share with us from this example?
I do. Another thing I would like to point out is in the way that pooling works, the difference between the Class 4 price and the Class 3 price in this month is roughly $4.50 per hundredweight. I would also highlight this month of July, if you look at spot markets today, you're probably going to see something a lot like this in October. So this is how we're going to be marketing our milk on Monday. The butter market is very high right now, and someone is selling cheese, and the cheese market is lowering. So this is typical of what you expect to see. What I wanted to point out here is that the spread between Class 3 and Class 4 is $4.50 per hundredweight. I don't want to bring up the make allowance discussion again, but let's pretend that the Class 3 make allowance is $2 because I like round numbers. So the way this works for the Class 3 processor, they're able to run their plant on $2 and then provide $13.77 to their dairy farmer. Another way, though, would be, what if they did nothing? What if I just paid that Class 3 guy $2 for his employees to not show up to work that day or to go to work and sit on their hands? Now, if I did that, I could still pay my Class 3 farmers $13.77, and then I could pay my Class 3 plant $2 to do nothing. That is only $15.77. The Class 4 price is $18.26. There's a spread there. That means there's a market. If we could move milk from Class 3 to Class 4, we could make money. We could serve the market. And that's what I did when I worked for a powder plant in the year 2000, when cheese was high and powder was low. I went to every cheese plant that I knew in the state, and I said, guess what? You're going to run full this month. You know why? Because you're going to pull milk out of my plant, and I'm going to sell it to you for Class 3 minus. So as much as I pick on depooling, I was a big depooler. I moved milk from Class 4 to Class 3 because I made a lot of money doing it. And most importantly, I serviced the market. The market said, I need cheese. I don't need powder. So I shut my powder plant down and I sold the milk to a cheese plant. What I want to highlight from this example is, because of pooling, the Class 3 farmer, the Class 3 price was $13.77, but the blend price was $15.24. So now the Class 3 farmer only paid $13.77, but because of pooling, they were able to pay their farmer $15.24. The spread between the blend and Class 4 is now much smaller. There is a much lower incentive for me to shut down that cheese plant now and move milk to Class 4. And as we increase the Class 1 price, that market signal to move milk from cheese to powder becomes even more and more muted.
In other words, as we try and incentivize more pooling when the market is not calling for it, it can distort what the market is actually wanting to do in the manufacturing classes.
Yes.
Thank you. If you could go to the next slide, please.
And on this slide here, I just said, I added that 1.4 billion pounds of milk to class 4, as we talked about earlier, and said, okay, we went to $37. I pulled the class 4 guys in. Now I got to get the class 2 guys. I want it all. Now, how much do I need to raise the price? And the real problem is here, in the last example, the class 1 market was 17% of the pool. Now I'm only 10% of the pool. And it's really, really hard for me to move the blend. So I had to get to $47 in order to incentivize class 2 to want a pool now.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so while we saw that the class 1 price was not an effective mechanism to compel either 3 or 4 to both pool, if we expand that to all classes, it becomes even more difficult.
Yes.
And now if you could go to the next slide. Oh, you beat me there. So can you tell me who are Crystal's suppliers?
For those who may not have what we're looking at, we're now on page 9 of this exhibit, which is, I'm sorry.
268.
Thanks, 268.
So tell me about Crystal's suppliers again.
Crystal we started as our own dairy farm, and then in the late 80s took on a number of direct shippers. And more recently, as we've entered the federal order, we've added a very diversified network of cooperatives and manufacturing plants to that, looking for pooling access.
And you say here the higher of offers no relief to direct shippers. Can you explain to us why that is?
Yeah, so this is another hypothetical example. Let's keep it simple for now. We're not going to talk about advance and actual, all that. Let's pretend it's all the same for simple math. So what I have here is a typical cheese depool month, which we could call year 2020, and a powder depool, which would be 2023, and an average. Let me walk you through what's going on here in my simple pool model. So let's start with the cheese depool month under the current formula. Let's say the class 3 price is $20 and the class 4 price is $15. This is in a 170 class 1 zone. So now the class 1 price is the average of class 3 and class 4, which is $17.50 plus 74 cents plus $1.70 for my location. That means the class 1 price this month is $19.94. We know what's going to happen. The cheese plant is going to depool. So what does that mean the blend price is? If 90% of the people in the pool pay $15 and 10% of the people in the pool pay $19.94, the blend price is going to be $15.49. And then as we go down to the bottom, the person who shipped to the cheese plant got $20. The person who shipped to the powder plant got $15.49. And the person who shipped to the fluid plant got $15.49. On the next column, we talk about the higher of. If the higher of were in place this month, the class 1 price would have been $21.70. On those utilizations, that increases my blend price to $15.67. and the pay prices translate down below.
And so the point here being, if you're a cooperative, you may not have to pay this final announced Class 1 price, correct?
Well, that, but mainly what I want to highlight here is when people talk about depooling, the cheese people got a good deal this month. The powder people, bad deal. The fluid people, bad deal. Now let's jump forward to year 2023 and powder's the market to depool. Now in this month, the powder people are getting a good deal. The cheese people and the Class 1 people are not getting a good deal. When you look at the long-term average, though, the direct ship farmer to a Class 1 plant, and I'm going to also extend this to organic farms who primarily sell high Class 1 utilizations, they never win. They always get the lowest price.
And is that why MIG put forth alternative proposals like the assembly credit?
Yes, that would be not for today, but when we talk about how can we innovate and do fun things, that's what gets me excited. That's how we can fix depooling with the tools that we have available to us today.
And in your experience, is there enough milk on the market to meet fluid needs?
I live in the Central Valley of California. From Modesto to Tulare is the largest and most dense milk shed on the entire planet. There is plenty of milk to go around.
And so this example is not about generating enough milk to meet fluid needs. It's about how you would want to take better care of your direct shippers.
Yes, when you look at the pay prices that I pay into the pool and the pay prices that my farmers are getting paid versus what their neighbors are getting paid shipping to manufacturing plants who can depool, I don't think we're achieving an equal outcome.
And do you think we need to adjust the base Class 1 skim price back to the higher of in order to either address that outcome or ensure a sufficient supply of fluid milk?
No, as I've highlighted in this example, the idea that, we're going to fix this by raising the price and then giving 90% of the money to the manufacturing class and 10% of the money to the fluid shipper is not going to fix the problem.
Anything else that you wanted to share? I think we have one more slide after that.
No, that would be it on these examples.
Okay. And then just your summary.
Yeah, the summary is that in California, at least, and in these large manufacturing orders, the Class 1 market is just too small to carry the burden. I can't subsidize every single truck of cheese going into a cheese plant in California to the tune of $5 a hundredweight. I just can't do it. There isn't enough money on the planet. Well, there is, but the U.S. consumer doesn't want to pay it. Moving to the higher of is not going to fix the problem. It's just more of the same. We need to think about the tools we have. I'm already paying a lot of money into the pool. We just need to find a way to direct that more to the people who are supplying the fluid plants. We don't need more money. There's plenty of milk out there, especially in California. For me, I'm just talking about the California order. I'm not talking about anywhere else. And again, I'm paying a lot of money. My farmers aren't seeing it. We need to think about the money that I'm already paying and think about ways to give it to those people more to get a more equitable outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Schulke.
Yep.
Nothing further.
Marin Bozic for Edge Dairy Farmer Cooperative. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning.
So to summarize your statement about average off versus higher off and the incentive it provides for moving milk between manufacturing classes, did I understand correctly that your example demonstrates that average off provides stronger incentives to move milk from a lower price manufacturing class to the higher price manufacturing class?
Only in that example. In other markets, it could be opposite because the average of could pay more, you know, and the average of we're talking about a 2-year average. So depending on, as National Milk brought up, when we first introduced this, it kind of paid a little better, you know, so I don't want to write a blanket statement, but I would say in these markets where things swing wildly and we do need to move milk from 3 to 4 or 4 to 3, the average of would help facilitate that a little better.
Wouldn't it be the case that average off would tend to be higher than higher off when there is little need to move milk between manufacturing classes?
Yes.
So then it would most likely actually be the case that average off helps move the milk between manufacturing classes.
Yes, as a one or the other, it's a better tool for that.
And so the part that I'm still struggling to understand, is that true only in the fixed 74 cents world, or does that remain true once we introduce revenue neutralizing ups and downs in the adjuster?
God, you've introduced a lot of moving pieces. But in general, if we're talking about a market where the spread is $5 between the class prices, any sort of long-term average is going to be a little better to help facilitate move.
And this is really not a prefabricated gotcha question. I'm trying to understand, going through this with you. So if to the extent that large spreads tend to be short-lived and that we have a 2-year look back, perhaps even gently moving the adjuster up and down would not substantially reduce the ability of average off to move milk between manufacturing classes as needed.
Yes.
Just thinking on the fly.
Okay, yeah.
This was a novel argument. I really appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Every time Dr. Bozic gets up here, I have to move the mic. Good morning, Mr. Schulke.
Good morning.
My name is Ryan Miltner. I represent Select Milk Producers. I believe you answered a question from Ms. Volin, and you indicated that your customers have not approached you about hedging, at least your Class 1 customers. Did I understand that correctly?
That's kind of a blanket statement. I guess I would say our customers have been trained to live with the system that we're in today.
So have any Class 1 customers asked you to help hedge their milk costs?
No, but I also don't think the school districts and people who would really benefit from it necessarily know it's available to them. The education has not taken place.
Have you approached those customers about the possibility of hedging their milk?
No, but I would like to. I think it's a value-added service that we need to offer. When you look at, it's been brought up that the markets, the conventional milk on the conventional pricing system has got a 40-year history of negative sales growth. And when we look at the organic and the Fairlife and these other products that are more stably priced, they have positive sales growth. I think there's something there.
Do you currently serve school accounts?
Yes,
Are those bid out competitively?
yes.
How many competitors do you have?
Oh, 2 to 3 in most districts.
Are those contracts for a set price for the entire year?
No, they're not. And when we have to raise prices, we get pushback about how that's not in the budget.
Do your competitors offer a fixed price on their school milk for the year?
No, they do not.
Being on a school board in Ohio, I'll say that's not my experience personally, but California is different. So we've been operating under this new mover for 4+ years, but nobody's approached you about it, correct?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, so they have approached you about it?
Mildly, and I would say most of those people have gone to other processors, mainly the ESL, and gotten that pricing formula.
And you're talking about a fixed price, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And again, I guess I would just, from my experience building this with dairy farmers, building it with the manufacturers, it takes time.
Is depuoling of milk a problem for Crystal Creamery?
I highlighted that I pay a lot of money into the pool, and I'm not able to pay that money to my farmers. If I could depool my class 2 and 4 plants and pay that money to my farmers, I think they would get a more equitable outcome.
Do you depuool your class 2 and 4 plants?
No, I do not.
Do you not have the ability to do that?
It's one site. I can't cut it in half.
Okay, you said plants as if it was plural, but it's one plant, correct?
Yes.
So would Crystal Creamery like to not see any depuoling?
No, I don't like what's going on right now with butter at an all-time high. I don't want people to go into the grocery store on Thanksgiving and see butter at $7 a pound and see a pint of heavy cream at $5 because we couldn't move milk from class 3 to class 4 and we made a bunch of barrels because the pool subsidized it.
Explain that a little more, please. Why would that occur?
If we can go back to my slide where I talk about the July California pool.
I think there were 3 of those. Which one were you talking about? 6, 7, or 8?
Be page 7.
Thank you.
So in this month and in the month of October, the market is screaming for butter. It is not asking for cheese. I believe yesterday on the exchange, cheese was sold and the market went down. Butter went to an all-time high. I don't think that's an efficient thing to be doing with our milk. I think we should shut down cheese plants and move that milk into powder plants. And this time of year, especially in California, those powder plants are only running at 70 to 80% capacity. We need to move milk into them. That's what the market wants. That's what the consumer wants. That's what's going to make value for the dairyman.
So because the market, the prices for cheese and butter are market set prices, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That was a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And you believe right now that milk cannot move to butter powder plants efficiently. Is that your testimony?
Because of the blend price, cheese plants are getting a subsidy that hinders it. I still think there's a slope there for it to be done, but I believe that if we could find a way, if pooling didn't exist, the slope between 3 and 4 would be greater and it would happen on a higher level. And long term, I want people to put whipped cream on their pumpkin pie. I don't want them to say, geez, that's pricey, I'll go without.
How would eliminating depooling change the class 3 and 4 prices, to change the slope between those prices?
What do you mean eliminating depooling?
I think I guess I'm having trouble tracking your answer, and it's probably me. You said that you wanted to increase the slope between, was it between 3 and 4?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you said that you tied that to the ability or inability of plants to depool, correct?
No.
No.
So I can't depool, and I also make fluid milk. So I took money on the fluid milk side from consumers. I could have, if this didn't exist and we didn't have class 1 pricing in the state of California, I would be able to procure milk for much less than the class 1 price on average every month. I would be able to pay my dairy farmers a higher price for that milk, and when I sold my fluid products in the stores, they would be at a lower price and more stable.
So what you really want is no minimum pricing for class 1.
Well, if in California, it's not necessary, would be my point there. But that's not what we're talking about. We don't live in that world. We live in a world where the government has given us the power of the police state to levy a tax on the consumer and then take that money. As an industry, I might not think that's necessary in California, but I respect it. And if we're going to have that authority, I would ask 3 things. One would be that we are gracious and humble to the consumer who's paying for it. 2, I would ask that we levy that tax in a way that is appropriate and markets our milk the best way. And 3, I would ask, once we have that money, we spend it wisely.
Do you pay a minimum wage to your employees?
We pay well above that.
Do you view the minimum wage as a tax imposed by government?
It's a minimum price.
Is that a tax imposed by government?
If not necessarily a tax, but it's a regulation.
So turning to your analysis on your slides, how did you determine the 1.4 billion pounds of milk to shove into class 4 when you adjusted the analysis?
I looked at previous months and pulled the number out of the air, and then I tried to tie the total to what the USDA said milk production was for the state that month.
So when you added that 1.4 billion pounds, you end up with a pooled milk volume of 3.3 billion pounds for July.
And that would be a number very close to what the USDA said was produced in California that month.
Produced in California by all farms, pooled or not. Is that correct?
Yes.
So looking at the pool reports, did you look at all the pool reports or a number of pool reports to come up with that 1.4 billion pounds and determine whether it's pooled or not?
I didn't put a lot of thought into it, to be honest, but we can plug in any number you want. I don't think you're going to get a different result.
Well, I think we ought to plug in numbers that are somewhat, in line with what's actually happening in California. And when I looked at the pool reports, I didn't look at them all, mind you, but I looked at several, and I really didn't see milk pooled in a volume like that. Did you find in the pool reports a month where 3.3 billion pounds of milk was pooled?
No, again, we were doing examples, but I don't know where you're going.
Okay, we'll get there. The month you selected, you noted that there is a $4.50 gap between 4 and 3. Those prices are inverted to the tune of over $4, correct?
Yes.
Did you look at what the utilization in the California order is in a month where prices are more rationally aligned?
We could look at the first few months of the year.
Did you look at that in preparing your analysis?
I pool milk in California regularly. I lived it.
So I think that's a no. Is that right?
That sounded to me like a yes.
Well,
Go ahead and ask him another question to clarify.
thank you. Did you look at the January pool reports when you prepared the analysis on slides 7 and 8?
I don't believe I opened it up when I was plugging 1.4 perfectly into that cell, no.
So if that January pool report shows that there was a little less than 2.4 billion pounds of milk pooled, would that sound right to you?
I don't have the pool report in front of me.
If that pool report said that the class 1 utilization was not 10%, but 18%, would that sound correct to you?
The class 1 utilization in the example I used is 17%. So I'll take your word for it.
Am I correct that when you added 1.4 billion pounds to the pool, you said, or that determined a class 1 utilization for the state of 10%?
Yes, I believe I stated that was my estimate of where all the milk was sold, not pooled.
Okay. And when you added that 1.4 billion pounds of milk, you added it all to class 4, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that 42% or thereabout is the volume of California milk that is processed at class 4 plants?
It's, it's very seasonal, but yeah, I guess I put the number in the cell.
Now, you worked with Gallo Cheese for a time, correct?
Yes.
Were you familiar with their participation in the former California pool?
Yes.
Was that plant pooled under the California system?
The plant, There are several non-pool plants in the California system, and I don't know where you're going, but I used to de-pool grade A milk in California, and no one said you could do it, but you could. But I have no idea why that is relevant to today.
Okay. Did the Gallo plant depool its milk?
Not necessarily the plant. If we want to open up a history book, there were other people in the state who thought you could only depool if you went grade B. There was a little thing on the 800 report, and what you could do is you could opt out and still remain grade A. And the rules of that were, once you opted out, you had to stay out for 12 months, and then you could get back in again. Why?
I'm very familiar with the ability to depool for a year in California under the old system, but thank you for putting that in the record. Do you know if the Gallo cheese plant today is a pool plant or not?
I do not.
Do you know if the Hilmar plant in California is a pool plant or not?
I do not.
So if there's 1.4 billion pounds of milk produced in California that you think is all in class 4, and there are cheese plants that are not depooled, would your analysis be a little off?
Can you state that again?
Sure. You assume that the 1.4 billion pounds of milk produced in California and not pooled in July was all class 4, correct?
I roughly plugged a number in there.
That's not responsive to his question. Ask it again, please.
In your analysis, did you assume that the 1.4 billion pounds not pooled was all class 4 milk?
Yes, it was a play example to illustrate a point. If you would like, I would give you the Excel file, and you can plug any number in that cell you want. It's not going to material change the answer.
I don't want your Excel file. If you put that milk in class 3, would it change your analysis, sir?
If I put
any portion of that 1.4 billion pounds into class 3 instead of class 4, would it change your analysis?
If we put more milk into class 3, now the blend price is going to be lower because I have even more milk paying in at the lowest price.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Let me have you look at page 6.
Yes.
So the bottom part of that indicates percentages of milk by class in the California pool utilization.
Yes.
That is not a play number. Those are accurate.
Those are real, and that's when I said maybe we can enter the July California pool report into the record.
And the reason that is relevant is that when you look at the next page, page 7, using those pool statistics, which are real, you illustrate your point.
Yeah, on page 7, I'm using real numbers in the pool from the very top of the pool report.
Understood. Thank you. Who next?
Good morning, Mr. Schulke.
Good morning.
I just want to,
Ms. Hancock.
this is Nicole Hancock with National Milk. If we can turn to page 2 of Exhibit 267, that's your